Hey everybody, it's Dave from Flash and Dance DJ and Production Services. So, this is the third time I have tried to shoot this. I was at my shop earlier today. Unfortunately, a new roof was being put on. Had a little bit too much noise there, so wasn't too happy with the video. I shot one this afternoon on the way to my part-time job. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out either. I forgot to turn the phone sideways like this, and now here it is, midnight, and I'm filming it for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So with that being said, let's talk about part 2 of owning a business, rambling, and equipment revamps. So this whole thing started last week when I had to revamp because I was working with on Saturday a really awesome bunch of guys. Want to send them, I don't know everybody's names, I know just one or two, but the one I want to send a big giant shout out, and I'm going to tag him in this video, is Corey. He's part of this group, a collective called the Got Balls Bands. Okay, and what this is to give you an idea. So a couple of the bands that I worked with within this conglomerate of bands, so basically you have the Got Balls Bands, which is the umbrella, and then all these different bands fall into it, and they use the word balls, B-A-L-L-Z, as a play on terms. So the whole impetus of this, from what I gather, started with Rage Against the Machine. So it started as Balls on Parade, which is the Rage, as we know, Bulls on Parade. So it plays on that. Then they also launched a Corn tribute, which was Corn Balls. And then they did a Limp Bizkit, which this one sounds a little funny, but it's Limp Balls. And then they added Beastie Balls, which is Beastie Boys. And recently, within the last couple of years, they've done More Balls Than Balls, which is White Zombie and Rob Zombie. Then they added House of Balls, which is House of Pain, and then Cypress Balls, which is Cypress Hill. So they have all of these different projects that they do, and different people from different ones performing different things. And I will say this, you see a lot of tribute acts out there, and some look the part and others don't. These guys go all the way. They, like the guy and, the guitar player who plays in the Limp Balls, the More Balls Than Balls, Corn Balls, Balls on Parade, all that. One of the guys, he dresses like Westmoreland, the actual guitar player from Limp Bizkit. He does like one of the original costumes, I think it is, that Wes had done way back in the day. They do cover a lot of the music across the spectrum. For each one they cherry pick songs that, and I loved all of it. What happened on Saturday, they did the Beastie Balls first, then they went, they took a 15-minute break, went and got drinks, they went and changed, they came back out dressed as Cypress Balls. And that was actually pretty cool, because like when they went to go in the tail end of their set, they did Insane in the Brain, that everybody knows. And Corey, the guy who I know in the group, he dressed like the guy who had the flannel shirt that was just two buttons, that with the little, I forget what the hat is called, but he had the hat. So it was kind of cool. They even threw in a couple of Public Enemy songs in there. They even threw in an Onyx song, and then at the end of the set they ended up doing Rock Superstar, which has always been one of my favorite House of Pain songs. But what is cool, Jerry, who does the DJ aspect of this, playing all the background, the samples, all that kind of stuff, he turns around, starts the sample, and they start talking about it, and then he hops off and he jumps onto the drum kit and he plays the drum kit part of the song. So it's kind of cool with that respect. Then everybody gets changed, they get prepped, they come out, and Johnny, who plays rhythm guitar and cornballs, and I believe he also plays in more balls and balls. He's also a part of another big one called Opiate and Alice, which is Tool and whatchamacallit, Alice in Chains, the Lane Stanley era. So he's all over the place. And what was cool was that he dressed up as the older Fred Durst, the current one that's out on tour that has the gray hair and all that. So he played that role, and they called him Dad. And then you had the lead singer, the actual lead singer, he dressed up as like the late 90s, early 2000s era Fred Durst, with, he had like the batting gloves on, the red hat turned backwards, the shorts, the iconic image that a lot of us remember Fred with. So got to do that. And so a lot of the prep that you guys and gals saw last week was for that. So this week, so you'll see the gig log from that. And one thing that was cool is that I not only was able to time lapse the setup and the teardown, I also time lapsed the show. So I'm gonna make a decision here. I may put that as a bonus clip by itself, but the stuff, me working in the shop, working in the trailer, stuff like that, will be a part of this, so that way everyone can see that part of it. And I'm doing right now, I have one show coming up, which is going to be at the Jetty, not this weekend, but next weekend. That'll be at the Jetty, and that's for Enough Said, I believe it is. And that's on Friday. And then Saturday of that week, which is kind of cool. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that Saturday is my wife's birthday. So that night on Saturday, we're going to celebrate her birthday with Chinese food. And family and friends are going to come in, sing karaoke, that kind of a thing, at the normal karaoke thing, which she's been gracious enough to cover for me. So when I'm out doing an event, like I did with the Got Balls guys, she went in and she did the Lakeville Country Club. So like this week, I'm going out to my all-time, I've DJ'd at tons of places, I've mixed at tons and tons of places, and I gotta say, one of my all-time favorite places is the Rathskeller, which is in Charlestown. It's a giant, I'm looking at the weather is looking awesome for Saturday. This is a giant, not like an arena type thing or an amphitheater, but it's an outdoor venue that they call it the Rathskeller down back. And it's the first time Northern Fried, who's a band based around the Boston area, North Shore, they're coming down my neck of the woods, and they're going to be performing, and they've never been there before. On their way back, so I believe it was Greg and James, who's the keyboard player, primary lead singer, and James, I believe it was, who's the guitar player, and he does some lead vocals from time to time. They stopped because they go over to Captain Nick's over on Block Island. So on the way back, they stopped just to go take a look. Their mouths dropped, so I'm told, don't quote me on that. And they got a hold of Anthony, who's the drummer, and they asked him specifically, who do we have for sound? And when they found out when Anthony said, "Oh, we got Dave for it," they were relieved. And then apparently I think they were even more relieved when Anthony relayed to them that it's one of my favorite venues, which it is, wholeheartedly. I love this place. And if it was, and I repeatedly will say this until the day I die, if it wasn't for my wife, if it wasn't for Americo Catalano, his brother Bob Catalano, and even more so Hank Perry, otherwise known as the Hankster, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be in some of the venues that I work at now. If it wasn't for all of them as a collective to push and get me into certain things, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So my hat's off to all of you. You know, I can't wait to celebrate my wife's birthday on the 20th, legitimately, because she deserves everything she gets. You know, she puts up a lot for me. She puts a lot from the family. She's the one who always organizes everything for our family, whether it's something for my mom. Like, she organized my nephew's graduation party with help from me, from her sister, from her mom. And we got small input from my nephew. And I have to say, I'm proud of him. I was really, really emotional, and that's another thing I want to talk about, which I'll talk about partly in the gig log. So as we all know, and I'm sorry, and this is why I call this the rambling one, because I am going to ramble a little bit here. So with that being said, what I'm going to say is it is hard for me. And this is why it's hard for me. I've learned over the years to back off. You try and get out of my own head sometimes and get out of my own way. So we go to the graduation. Right now, the school he goes to in this area, or did go to, is under construction because you're building a new school, which will be open in September. Normally, it's limited people who can go. Maybe 2 to 3 people from the family. That's it. Well, because this was open in a park, it was unlimited people could go. Fine, good, great. That was awesome. Even though I did have to go all the way out to Cranston, it is what it is. So I was able to go for almost the 2 hours of the thing. And in a minute, you're going to understand why. And there's a reason why I'm leaving the park that it took place in and the school that it is, because I don't know who the production company was. I don't know if it was in-house based or if it was externally based. There were a few things on the tech side that I had to take myself out of my own way and stop myself from trying to fix things. That's the downside to me. I tried to be present for my wife, for my nephew's girlfriend who was there, for my nephew's, for my sister-in-law, for my mother-in-law, from other students' parents that I knew. I needed to try and take a step back. And I restrained myself big time. So they go through a half hour, at least that's what it seemed like, a half hour of contemporary music. A lot of pop music, which was fine. And I'm sure that the school put the playlist together, which was perfect. I have no issues with something like that, because you have a large crowd. It looked like it was a good crowd of, I think the class was like 300 and some odd kids or students, whatever you want to call them. And I think there was close to 500 people who were there. So they do the procession, superintendent, school committee, all that starts before all the students walk in. Now, mind you, this is an open air park. Stage was I think a stage line, so an SL 200, 300 type of stage. whoever the production company had, I think 8 RCF HDL 6s or 10s. I don't know because I wasn't involved, but they look like they were the smaller cabinet, so I'm thinking the 6s. And it had a lot of low-end presence. Now, me knowing that system as moderately well as I do, there is no way that the low end that I was hearing was coming out of those tops. They had to have subs underneath the scrim on the bottom of the stage. Now, they start the pomp and circumstance. It builds up. Then all of a sudden, they have to repeat it because there's so many kids. And even in my head, I'm saying, oh, hopefully they made a good edit of this. Nope. After the fact, I talked to his girlfriend, I talked to my nephew, I talked to his brother, I talked to a few other people who were there at the ceremony, and they all said the same thing. It sounded like a CD skipping. You know, and it's like, it is what it is. It happens. The sad part is, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for the kids, and hopefully they don't take that part of it. But anyway, so then we get through some speeches, and then they go to do the national anthem like you do at most events like this. And whoever was in charge of the music, I guess the playlist was playing, and when they raised the volume up, it was on just a generic song. And then they played, I don't know who the national anthem was by, but they played a very, very good rendition of the national anthem. I find it amazing, and things like that, as much as you want to be, do the normal traditional things for that, I wanted to break out my phone so bad and figure out who it was and what version it was. But the thing was, like I said, I'm trying to be in for my family there. I'm trying to stay out of business mode. And then this is where I forget who said it, and I'm not going to say the name of the person, but I forget what their position is. And they turned around and made a really, really good recovery joke. And that was, we wanted to see if everybody was awake. That got a big giant raw out of everybody, including myself. I chuckled at that. And I thought, wait a minute, that was brilliant. You come back from a major flub like that, and it's perfect. So then we go, everything else goes through. And I will compliment the production company. Out where I was in the house, perfectly fine. I heard everything except for there was a minor rolling feedback on the tss, and like the harsher syllables that you can have sometimes. Other than that, spot on, awesome. There was a drone that ended up flying around at some point, and my nephew said this, and this is where the production company could have hit the mark a little bit more, was that there was no front fills. So that meant where the students were sitting, they couldn't, once that drone came down and started when they were doing the presentation of the diplomas, that's what it was primarily for, I believe, they couldn't hear anything. My nephew said that the drone was so loud above them, it was drowning out front of house, which to me, a sound system like that should have been overpowering that drone. Now, I don't know, like I said, I don't know who the production company was, none of that. I wasn't about to go over at the end. I did see on side stage, I believe, as a lot of companies now are doing, running the Allen and Heath Q series or QL or QC series. I forget which the prosumer line is. Running one of those, which is perfectly fine. But like I said, overall, as a grand scheme, his graduation was awesome. So then, yeah, the part of the video you're going to see, and I'm sorry, like I said, this is a rambling video, so I apologize. So now, fast forward to his graduation party. I take one of my QSC K10s in. I'm having a minor audio issue with it. Okay, fine. Go back out to the trail. Have to carry a bunch of stuff from the trailer into the venue. I bring in one of my Mackie SRM 450. I will wholeheartedly tell anybody who's anybody, they're tanks. These are the Italian model, which had RCF unbranded drivers in them. Somebody online is selling a set of these, and I am trying to save the money to get them, because I think that would make my inventory for monitor wedges one, you know, it's not top of the line, but it would be some of the best monitor wedges I think most people would enjoy, because their frequency response is very flat in my opinion. They were one of the first powered speakers on the market that you could use as a wedge. So that's why I like them. Plus they're a 1,000-watt speaker. So if somebody needs more than 1,000 watts blasting at them in a dive bar, as I call it, or like Saturday's gig, then I think your hearing is going, or, you know, you just like things a little too loud. Anyway, so get through that. So then I decide yesterday that I'm going to, in the shop, and hopefully it was captured on video, I troubleshooted a little bit. Add an EV, I believe it's an EKX 12. A couple of years ago, I used it as an event for something. It didn't sound quite right, so I don't know if it was the guy's mix or what, or a bad cable. But when I went to a different speaker, everything was fine. So I put a piece of tape on it, and I tucked it away and said, okay, I've got to repair this. And I'd never pulled it out for the longest time. And now all of a sudden, I decided on a whim after I fixed the K10, which, by the way, was a loose wire. I think it wiggled free a little bit, which the thing I do like about QSE products is you do have warranties on them, but they make the boxes in such a way that, and I remember distinctly a year after I had gotten the K10s, that I had called QSE directly, and they told me point blank that their warranty is not void if you're doing basic service, meaning that if you have an issue with the woofer, take the grill off, pop the woofer out, and see if the wire that is supposed to be connected to one of the terminals on the woofer or the horn is disconnected. If it is, reconnect it, put the cabinet back together, and play music through it. See if it works. Perfectly, it was perfectly fine after that. I found out it's a little loose, so I'm probably at some point, and this is another reason why, I'll be able to take the EVs and the K10s out of monitor service, and then I can make a decision about selling the EVs and keeping the K10s for fill speakers, like front fills or side fills or distance fill. And I could do the same thing with the EVs if I wanted to. Anyway, I digress. So I said to myself, if I'm already working on this QSE, let me pull out the EV. I pulled out the EV, set it up, hooked it up. I cranked it up for 5 or 10 minutes. It hit like they always do. It sounded amazing for what it is. But me personally, I'm not a fan of EV. I know there's a lot of people out there. There's some fanboys, fangirls for EV, and that is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, for my taste, the way the DSP works internally, they clip too fast for me, and they limit too hard for me. I'm not a big fan of that. I would rather have a speaker, sure, that has that, but I want to be able to completely, like with my JBL SRX 815Ps, I have none of the internal DSP. Even hooking up my computer via of the ProNet software, I think, or Sound Architecture software, I have all that stuff completely off because I don't need any of that at all. None at all. So, you know, so that's back in service now. So now for the, you know, so I actually was talking to ChatGPT, and here's something that's kind of cool. I do set up a front fill because I put my subs in the middle at the Rascaler because I want more, you know, as, you know, it, by putting them together, it creates a perceived 8 more decibels, I believe, of low end. And it works really well. And what I always do by doing that, putting them there, and I set up specific filters and I set up delay times and stuff like that, I put a center fill. So I have my 2 JBLs on the sides for my main left and right, but then usually I take a QSE K10 and I put that on, and I ratchet strap that on top of my subs, and I will use that for a center fill. The other thing about the Rathskeller is that they have, I think, a 90 dB limit at the tent. So that's about, I'd say, 75 to 100 feet away from the front edge of the stage. So I apologize. Remember, guys, it's almost 12:30 now. I've been rambling for a half hour on this. So with that being said, I'm going to test the EV because I don't need to provide monitors on Saturday. Northern Fried does their own wedges. So, and that's one thing that I do like about a lot of the bands that I've been working with. The Got Balls guys, I did their wedges. I was talking with a couple of them. They're thinking about going to ears. I don't know how soon that's going to happen, and that's neither here nor there. I don't mind doing wedges for certain bands. Like I found out this past weekend, the guitar player, the gate I had that I was actually trying to use, I don't know if it was a compressor or a gate, I shut it off because the way it was reacting going into the wedges, it was not allowing the guitar to open properly. So I have my Microsoft Surface, I'm on stage with the wedge. As soon as I shut that off, for the, not just for the drummer, but on the guitar, the stereo left and right for the guitar, it came right back into the monitor mixes perfectly the way it's supposed to be. So I hope that this has been knowledge and educational. I'm sorry, it's probably been a half hour now. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy the couple of clips I'm going to play, and I will see you on the back end of those. All right, I hope everybody enjoyed those clips that I posted, and I apologize that, you know, yawning and stuff like that, but here it is, almost 12:30 in the morning, and you know, and I'm taking care of this like I want to have this done in the morning when I get up at 8 o'clock, because that's what I've been doing lately. But anyway, I digress. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the things that you do on the videos, you know, and if there's anything you want me to cover, make sure down below in the comment section or message me. You can find me on all social media. It's either DJ Spin, which is DJ SPYNN, or Flash and Dance DJ. You know, it's all over social media with either one. And you can either find me on Linktree as well. You can find my schedule there and stuff like that. So with that being said, I'm going to say, make sure you treat everyone the way that you want to be treated. And don't forget to learn one thing every day. And with that being said, I will see you on Monday with the gig log from this past weekend.